Hello, all. My name is Ragini, and I'm the editorial lead at SheThePeople TV. Welcome to the year-end edition of Women Writers Fest. As we bid goodbye to the year 2023, we think of the bygones of resolution, of love, of family, and if you are like me, sometimes of home. So, literature has conceptualized and portrayed home as a physical space, as a cultural identity, and sometimes as an emotional refuge. To talk more about this, we have London based author Hema Sukumar, whose debut novel Minor Disturbances at Grand Life Apartments also touches and investigates similar themes. Welcome, Hema, and thank you so much for taking time out and being a part of this discussion.
Hi,
So,
Ragini. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everyone, for listening as well. I'm very happy to be here.
Firstly, I would want to start with a slight summary of your novel for our readers, and then we can just go on discussing the themes that I found very charming. Yeah, over to you.
First of all, thanks for reading. So, my book, Minor Disturbances at Grand Life Apartments, follows the lives of three residents of an apartment building in Chennai and explores how the residents navigate the turbulences in their lives and also come together when the existence of the apartment comes under threat. The story is told from the perspective of three residents of Grand Life Apartments, Kamala, Revati, and Jason. Kamala is a mother who spends her time counting down to her daughter's visit from the UK. Revati is a 32-year-old engineer who feels constantly judged by society for being single. And Jason is a British chef who's traveled all the way from London to come to terms with his heartbreak. At its core, I would say the book is about relationships and the concept of home, like you said, and the comfort that friendship brings in middle age, the push and pull between mothers and grown up daughters. And the unexpected connections between strangers. So yeah, it's supposed to be life affirming and funny.
Yeah, tell me, what is your definition of home? I read that you traveled extensively and written about your travels as well in various publications. I want to know, what is your idea of home? Is it the aged old phenomena that home is where your heart is? So, what do you, how do you look at it?
So, to me, I also want to preface it by saying that I had never traveled outside India until I was 21. So, I had stayed in Chennai for a long time and I studied in Rajasthan, North India as well. And so, for me, I would say, and having a lot of travel later on, I think I have like two perspectives to the concept of home. And to me, the concept is not essentially a specific location, but whatever gives you like a feeling of community. And I think this feeling of belonging can be felt in more place than one. I think you can have like more than one place that you consider as home. And in my book, the idea of home comes from my childhood in Chennai, which saw very little change. Like I lived in the same house on what is still a very bustling main road. Took the same PTC bus to school, same neighbors' houses during festivals. And I think this entire experience was underlined by a strong sense of community, which had a large influence on the story and the concept of home, I think. Yeah.
So, when you talk about community, when you talk about the belongingness, I especially loved the sisterhood that was mentioned in the book. I like the friendship between Kamala and Sudhu. I like how two middle-aged ladies just find solace in one another, and it's endearing to know, to have that feeling of belonging, that I have a friend to fall back upon. Tell me how important it is for women to find that, to find a group, or maybe in later parts of their lives.
I think that's more important to your well-being, I think, than having like a partner, to be honest. um especially because I've seen it even with people my like age of my mother, right? The comfort that they get from friendships of their own peer group. They wait for each other for hospital visits, similar to how
Mhm.
Sundu does here. They visit each other's houses, complain about their family to each other. And I think that brings a sense of well-being. The mental well-being, I think, hinges a lot on having the support network of women. And it's not, they may necessarily not have the same worldview, which I think also makes it interesting. I think like even if you come from different backgrounds, I think friendship comes even from these differences and changing each other for the better, or making each
Yeah,
other see the world differently, which I think is also important. And especially when get a bit older, and you have had different life experiences, different expectations from society. So each of us make the view the world differently. And this kind of friendship helps you make it helps you change your worldview for the better, I think, or nudges you differently, which I think is also important as we get older, or at any age, honestly. And I think that's like even like when you think about friends from college, I think that was also you bounce ideas off each other,
yeah.
or you change your worldview a bit from what your other person says. So I think that it's very like an essential part of living.
Yeah. So, you said that you have lived your life in Chennai, and the novel is also based on that, on the same, and you drew from life experiences. Uh, do you ever get a, like, after having lived here, after having traveled, and after having studied abroad, do you ever get a feeling of not belonging anymore? Like, do you come across, and how do you deal with that? How do you deal when you want to write authentically about something, especially about home of experiences, but sometimes you have that disconnect? How do you deal with that phase?
So I have to admit that I did doubt whether the writing of Chennai, because like I've lived for a while, but then I also moved away. I did wonder while writing whether it was tinted by like a sense of nostalgia, which may not entirely be accurate of what actually happens there. Maybe my view was a bit more rose colored, like because I haven't been there for a while and I missed the place.
Hmm.
And to be super honest, I think to write the concept of home when you have moved away has both its advantages and disadvantages. I think moving away helps you discover new things about yourself, helps you explore your own personal freedom, and it views your roots with a different lens, which I think has also shaped the narrative on how you view things that you considered acceptable while growing up. And then you go back and challenge it, which could also be a bit uncomfortable in your sense of belonging, as you said, right? You may not entirely agree with the worldview when you go back. And it does get complicated every time I go back. And I could see, for example, how like the conflict between traditional values and modernity, right? You
Hmm.
struggle with it a bit when you go back to what you considered as home. But I also see that the cities in India are also having this conflict between, even if you meet like the dreams and the moral confusion of the city's younger generation. Like when I speak to my younger cousins, for example,
Yeah.
you see that they want to access greater freedoms than what the parents had, and and I think everyone's concept keeps changing. And when you go back with a different perspective, I think you're able to tap into a slightly different version of the city than what you considered as home. So I think there are both positives and negatives to like moving away and going back and viewing the city.
Yeah, and how do you navigate that when you sit down to write?
I honestly think you have to doubt your concept of home and write and do both simultaneously together. I don't think there is like, you can put aside the concept, or you can be completely confident that what you know is the concept of home. I think it's okay to doubt and also like create. And I think that helps you be more empathetic as well, because you want to get into the shoes of the person you're writing, rather than have your own personal bias of home or personal bias of what you think is home
Yeah.
influence the story. Yeah.
That's so lovely, to reinterpret our own belongingness, our own concept. And it might like try it might get give us a bit of creative freedom there.
Yeah.
uh, uh, when you talk about roots, when you talk about displacement, and it is so vividly displayed in your novel also, it helped all the characters to reconnect to one another. They came back to fight for themselves there, when when they thought ki, now what, like they got anxious about taking away their roots. So there's this wonderful dialogue that I always remember when I think about home. It's in the movie Piku, where Irfan Khan tells Deepika Padukone, who is thinking about selling away her father's ancestral property, and he tells her, that when you take away roots, nothing is left. And it's such a it's so beautiful thought. Do What are your thoughts about it? What do you did you have this thing while penning down the particular narrative in your novel?
Yeah, I think your comparison is true, right? I do think that all of us are strongly connected to our roots only when we get displaced, I think. Like otherwise I think we take it for granted. Like if you are in the same place, you probably complain about the place a lot. And when you do get displaced, or when you have a threat to where you live, or the people you're with, or your community, that is when I think you realize how much it mattered to you, or how how much the roots meant to you. And I think that is something that I had wanted to bring about in my book as well, how people get together when there is a threat, or there's when you feel like you're getting displaced from where you
Mm,
are. And I feel like the sense of roots, or the strong sense, I would say, if you displace yourself willingly, right, I think it can be both uncomfortable, rewarding. It gives you a sense of, stronger sense of roots. Like you feel more strongly to Chennai after getting displaced, I
yeah,
think, being a personal thing, than I was when I was living there. Like I said, you take it for granted, or you say the grass is always greener somewhere else, right? And I think it it moving away helped me view my roots with a different lens. But at the same time, I do think the concept of roots become more important to you once you feel it come across it as a threat, or you don't take it for granted. I think a very common thing is also like your mom's cooking, I would say, is like a classic
yeah.
example, right? Like you take it for granted, you complain about it,
Mhm.
but once you live away for a while, you realize how much it mattered to you, or how much the sense of roots, or that really you took it, like it has it's priceless really when you think about it, once you moved
Mhm.
away or you don't have it anymore.
Food is also a recurring theme in your novel, and it's so nicely portrayed, so beautifully, very evocative. Tell me your relationship with food. How do you miss Chennai? Do you miss food in like Indian cuisine? How is it?
Oh, 100%. I really think, like, probably the thing that I miss the most about Chennai would probably be the food. And I love dosas. If you look at my Instagram account, I think it's 50% dosas and 50% about my book. So I really enjoy reading about food as well. I like watching videos of people making food, and I'm constantly thinking about what to eat next. And when you're far away from home, I think it also makes you nostalgic. I grew up with like a grandmother who was an amazing cook. Both my parents really enjoy cooking, and they talk about what to eat for lunch, dinner. I think it's the case with a lot of Indian families, I think. So I was grew up surrounded by a love of enjoying what you eat. I also have to add that I am personally a lazy cook, so I'm not going to be writing any cookbooks anytime soon. Uh, but the book that I mentioned, like the Samay Tupar that I mentioned in the book, Someone gifted to me for our wedding, and although I'm not made I made probably one recipe from it. I really enjoyed reading through it, thinking of all the possibilities, like the snacks made during festivals, and I think that grew into like how would it be if, like, like a chef comes and
Yeah.
tries cooking this. That led to that narrative more quite organically, I think.
Lovely. So we are almost towards the end of our conversation. I just want to have what were your favorite reads for from 2023, and would you like to recommend any books, any shows to our viewers?
So I don't think there is some recency bias in like the more recent reads, being at the top of my mind. I was in India recently and I picked up the book Desperately Seeking Shahrukh, which I think you might have
Yeah.
heard of as well, by Shayana Bhattacharya. And I absolutely loved it. Like, it's an in depth portrayal of India as women. It was remarkable and I quite admired how it was non judgmental, it was eye opening and full of heart. And I've been recommending this book to a lot of people after reading it. Another book that I picked up was The Chilean Poet by Alejandro Zambra recently. It's about a Chilean poet and a relationship with his adopted son. It's funny, full of heart, it's beautifully written, and I was very pleased to have picked it up in a random bookshop browse. The other two books I would say are Lucy by the Sea by Elizabeth Strout and Roman Stories by Jhumpa Lahiri. I think both of them
Yeah, yeah.
write similar. Like, I admire the way they write and would pick up anything that they write next. And they write about the human experience with a clarity that I think there's a lot I can learn from. I would say these are like the most recent top reads that I've been recommending. Um, in terms of TV shows, I've been watching. I usually watch funny 30-minute sitcoms, so there's not. And rewatch things that are favorites. So that I wouldn't say there's anything I would recommend unless their taste is as I doubt my taste in TV, to be honest. So it's fine. I think I'll leave it with the books.
It's absolutely fine. We had before we had a panel with Kavita Kane, and she recommended just comfort books. They were old authors, Salman Rushdie. It's like it's best to go back to your comfort, and that's so lovely. We want that. We want a similar warm, comforting feeling during this holiday season. So yeah, any shortlist for 2024? Anything that you are looking forward to?
So, in terms of writing, I am working on something new, and it's set between London and Chennai, and again, interrogates themes of home,
Yeah.
feminism, friendship, and but it's too early. It's too early stage to like say what exactly it's about. But I'm also my writing process is quite slow, so it's going to take some time before it actually takes a shape that is recognizable. But I do hope to spend more time on it, like along with like my day job and other things that I have. I do want to write more for 2024.
That's lovely, and I wish you the best. We would like to wrap up here, and thank you so much for having this discussion. Wonderful takeaways, wonderful nostalgic features for home. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ragini, for having me and for the lovely questions. I really enjoyed talking to you. Take care.
Thank you.